an old guy told me, I had a cellmate who had been in prison for over 30 years the time that I met him. And he was my cellmate for maybe 2.5 years. He had been in jail and he had done some egregious shit, which he'll take to the grave with him. But we had some interesting conversations. But he made a mistake when he was literally like 16, and he'd been in prison ever since then.
Wow.
And man, the man just, he told me that the greatest thing that any of us could ever do is to empathize with other people.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what that meant. Because there were people that tried to, recruit me and do different things. But this guy would say, as almost like a father figure, like, hey, like, why do you think he came over here and he brought you that fucking Playboy book? Do you think it's because he thinks that you're a good person and he just wants to share the book with you? Or do they want to, they want to force feed you something? And we're being force fed, and people are capitalizing off of this bullshit. Like, just to go back to your point about the media, they're making billions of dollars off of showing us false shit, or
entertaining,
or just keeping us on our respective viewpoints based on, if you watch Fox News, we know that you're on one side. If you watch CNN or MSNBC or any of those other outlets, we know that you're on that side. So we're just going to show you the shit that we know is going to make you infuriated, so you'll turn on the fucking TV and watch us today. Yeah. And we don't care that it's completely false. We don't care that we took a 3-hour conversation and came up with 4 fucking lines to make you hate that person. And man, so in conversations I've had with you, I've posted shit and you've been writing there in comments like, man, read the goddamn article. And then I go and I'm like, oh shit. There's no fact here. Now I need to take it down. But yeah, I think you're spot on there in that we can't, like, violence begots violence, hate begots hate. And I'm not saying we all have to fucking sing Kumbaya and love each other. I'm not saying that. But do you remember, I think we talked maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and we talked on the phone, actually. And we were talking about killing people with kindness.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about, usually I say that and people think that you're going to let people spit on you and you're going to be nice. No, fucking somebody spits on you, you fuck them up. That's a different
that's assault.
Disrespect. Yeah. The assault, you should probably handle that business, or other people will spit on you. But if someone thinks that they have a reason for hating you, but you are not what they think, and you just keep being yourself and you don't let that impact you, well, eventually they have to fucking take a look at themselves. This is what he told me. And I thought about it. I was in my car, I was driving, and I'm like, damn, man, you know what? Fuck, that's right. Because if what I'm doing and saying isn't controlling or making you do those things, I'm now invalidated. And I got to look at, like, well, why the fuck do I think this way? And if people start to actually think for themselves, I think that's like on the process to improving relations when it comes to race. But it's also about, we have to talk about how some of these fucking stereotypes are true. So what do you do? What level of accountability do you have, black people, white people, to change perceptions? Because I grew up in those neighborhoods, and I would challenge any black person to, okay, well, you can't make this argument and complain about violence if, violence is like a real black on black violence is a real issue. You can't use the N-word and call your women bitches and hoes and then be mad or upset when someone else says it or thinks that that's like your thing when you glorify these things. And I'm not saying that that's everyone. I'm just saying there is a segment in everywhere. There's always a segment of people that are the minority within those groups. But if that is that being regurgitated and projected, then how do you expect the other side to see it?
Well, this comes back to what I was saying about leadership, because I am against any and all forms of censorship in any capacity at all. You know, there's something that Trey Parker, of all people, said, you know, one of the creators of South Park. Either you can say everything or you can't say anything. And I, you know, lean to the side of everything. Now,
First Amendment.
yeah, well, there's that. But I mean, people go, oh, well, you know, someone could hear that and take that. No, let me stop you right there. That starts with parenting. When I say leadership, by the way, I don't mean elected officials. I mean community influencers, starting in the home, but also members of the clergy, coaches, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. If me as an adult, if I can listen to the lyrics of a song and not go, this is a song, I'm not going to go commit this egregious act because I heard this in a song. Well, that, then I probably shouldn't be walking around, you know, like that's like that is yeah, this notion of like we have to censor free speech because someone might not know better than to go act on that is absolutely absurd. That's just absolutely ridiculous.
Wow. I always wonder when I'm speaking to you if your experiences within the military has kind of helped shape the way that you view life. And I often wonder if someone like myself at 18 would have joined the military, how much different my life may have been. And and I look at a lot of kids that need some form of stability and leadership because they are being failed on the ground roots level of within their own households.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
the community is also failing them. Elected
Right.
officials are failing them. And then they're, you know, and they're slipping between the cracks, man. But there's hope when people like you and me have a platform where we can speak to those people through our actions. And you
Right.
haven't for 1 second talked about any of the great things that you do in the community at your gym. So I'm going to kind of put you out there right now because I know that you do a lot of work out there in the community in Philadelphia, you and the Fire for Effect athletics community.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I want to speak because of you, I became, you know, a chapter of the weekly fight. So I kind of
Yep.
want you to elaborate a little bit because I think you can probably explain it a lot more elegantly than I can. So let's talk about the weekly fight, and then could you elaborate on some of the other things you've been doing, feeding the homeless, working with kids, the stuff you have going on with the Girl Scouts? Like, I'd love to hear all these positive things in a time where people like you and me, gym owners in particular, we have a pulse on the community because we have all these different people coming in and out of our doors every day.
Right.
And those people would follow us to the fucking grave. So all these people that are out there putting up their fucking black squares and saying that they want to make a change and they're giving away free shit, a membership or whatever, like, you're someone who's actually taking responsibility in the community, even in an area where you may be the minority. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear a little bit about the weekly fight. I want to hear a little bit about some of the other things, great things that you're doing out there in the community, because I want other fucking gym owners that are watching this to understand how we can make an impact.
Well, you've probably heard me say one phrase a million times: deeds, not words. I can say that I stand for something till I'm blue in the face, but until you actually stand for something, and by the way, that doesn't mean throwing a brick, that doesn't mean writing any or, you know, setting anything on fire or anything like that. It means doing it the positive way. You lead by example. So the weekly fight, as soon as I don't even know that my doors were open yet. Marty reached out. He found me and he reached out to me. He had just heard this veteran-owned gym was opening in Philadelphia. And Marty, as you know, he's a retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major. So, you know, we had common ground there already. Didn't need to build a rapport because we had one. And
Beautiful guy. Shout out to Marty Marine. Beautiful fellow.
Marty, yeah, he's such a good dude. Um, I'm not a big fan of some of the larger veterans organizations out there. Um, just, you know, there's been documented examples of corruption in some of these organizations, people lining their own wallets instead of the money going back to veterans where it belongs. Um, so the weekly fight appealed to me right out of the gate because it was clearly a small, local grassroots organization. So that means and being led by a sergeant major. So it's got good leadership, it's got good roots, and now there's a council essentially within the weekly fight. But beyond that, um, I liked their avenue of approach with helping veterans. Naturally, being a veterans-owned organization and a veterans organization, excuse me, um, their objective is to help veterans in the community, specifically combating things like post-traumatic stress, suicidality, and things like that. Um, everyone is quick to help veterans if it means signing up for a 5K. Oh, I gave my $40 and I got my T-shirt, and now I'm going to do my 5K. Now I did enough to help veterans. Or I'm going to do Murph on Memorial Day, or I'm going to, and on and on and on. And by the way, these are all great things. Good, great. But you can't throw money at a problem like post-traumatic stress. Okay, it's the experience of veterans, combat veterans specifically, but all veterans nonetheless, is that best case scenario, you are exposed to this lifestyle and you get incredibly close with people that you're willing to put your life on the line for. Worst case scenario, you're exposed to those situations and you get a glimpse of how ugly the world can be, and now you're just expected to reintegrate into a society where, even though people generally have it pretty good, they're very hateful and spiteful and etc. That's a lot to digest as a veteran. There's this thing that we raised our right hand and took an oath to defend, and then watch people killing it from the inside out. And there's lots of reasons why veterans have this battle in regards to behavioral health and mental health, but that's a big one for me. Is reintegrating. So Marty had this idea that physical fitness is a way it's something we can all do. What's up, buddy? Whether you're a Vietnam veteran, whether you're an Iraq veteran, whether you're 21 years old or 75 years old, the one thing that we can all do together is we can work out together and we can get stronger together. And healthy body, healthy mind. Of course, there's more nuance than that. There's other stuff. We can't just work out and call it a day.
Right.
I'm in counseling, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But I liked the mission because it's hands-on. It's real. It's being involved with those veterans in the community and having some sort of how do I want to phrase this? Accountability. Because when you're in the military, you're part of a unit, and when you get out of the military, we lose that. So I liked the way that Marty had this framed. You get a unit back, you become part of a unit again. You fall back in with a lot of veterans. And on that, before I lose it, because I'll forget, is there's a phenomenon out there where the majority of civilians don't know how to help us reintegrate into society. Everybody wants the T-shirt, but they don't want to do the work when, say, a veteran, for example, is acting out. Maybe it's them just kind of lashing out, and on the surface they're like, God, he's being an asshole. Or maybe it's the other side of it. maybe he's being the life of the party and like he's buying everybody's drinks at the bar that night and just like way over the top with their behavior. Those are both giant red flags with post-traumatic stress and other behavioral health issues with veterans. But the problem is where a lot of people say, you know, thank you for your service and we want to be a part of it. When it comes time to actually put your money where your mouth is and be involved in that veteran's life and recognize that this behavior is probably as a result of something that he's experiencing due to a behavioral health issue, people just turn their backs and they go, okay, I can't deal with this. I'll talk to you when you feel better. And then that's when they put a gun to their head. Or worse, I mean, that's worst case scenario. Or, you know, bad enough on its own, now they feel ostracized from another group. You know, I've been there. I was, I mean, and you know what? I have post-traumatic stress and I'm never going to get rid of it. I've accepted that. But when I first got back from the war and years after that, oh my God, I was just doing everything I could to numb the pain, just partying my face off and, you know, what I call single serving friends, you know, it was a mess. But anyway, that's why I love the weekly fight. That's why I love the weekly fight so incredibly much. Other things that we're doing in the community. We're always looking for new things that we can do in the community. I personally, there's nothing formal with this at all, but there's a generous amount of homelessness in Philadelphia. And the first time I did this, I was pulling down off the off-ramp on 76 to come to my gym. And dumb luck, he ended up being a veteran too, but it's the middle of July. And this guy is standing there in long sleeves. You know, he's got like a flannel on. You know, he looked pretty rough. He had a tiny dog with him, and you know, I'm an animal lover, so that was just more of my heartstrings being tugged. And I just pulled over, and I said, I'll be back in a couple minutes. I want to bring you some stuff. So I went home and like all the clothing that I could spare, just shoved it in a bag that I could afford to get rid of, just, you know, a backpack, water, you know, food for the dog, on and on and on. Came back, and I think he was surprised that I actually brought stuff back to him. But then I told him, I was like, look, my gym is right over here. Why don't you come over, get a shower, get yourself cleaned up, get out of the elements for a while. Again, it was July, so it was in the 90s, and he was sweating hard, and he did it, you know. So I just kind of allowed that to become like an unofficial standard operating procedure for me. Is if I see someone like that could use a hand, you know, I have showers, you know, I'll help you in any way you can. And on top of that, I have a tremendous amount of friends that are members of this gym, and, you know, just people I know out in town that are business owners, and they have, you know, or they have their hand in the cookie jar, you know, to help people get jobs. So I've helped people get jobs and stuff too. That gentleman that I'm talking about, the last I checked, he's up in Maine, where he's from. And he's the president of his VFW now, or commander of his VFW now. And he's working, and, you know, life seems to have turned around a little bit. It's amazing. Just a little bit can go a long way, even if it's just a kind word to somebody. You know, someone who's down on their luck like that, they're already beating themselves up. They're not happy to wake up homeless, you know, and, you know, you get ignored a lot, and, you know, it's got to hurt your pride. So there's that. Doing work with the Girl Scouts, you know, we don't object to having the Boy Scouts come in too. It just hasn't happened to this point.
You're sexist.
But it's just, you know, we're in a really, here's one of those good things, one of those interesting things that we don't ever get to hear about, is that we're living in a time where women are becoming empowered to be strong and to be fit. Just a few years ago, when you and I were kids, you know, it was like, okay, well, guys lift weights, and then you ladies, you do a lot of cardio and aerobics and eat rice cakes and stuff, like being skinny as possible. Bullshit.
Yeah.
We're men and women. We're both built to be strong, and it is so awesome to be in this tipping point generation where it's becoming more and more and more popular with women to embrace being strong. I love that.